Welcome back to the deep dive. This time, we're diving into Tolkien's world, going beyond like the familiar stories of, hobbits and wizards and rings. Today, we're unearthing the hidden gems of the Silmarillion. You've read The Lord of the Rings, maybe even tackled those appendices, but trust me, this is a whole different beast.
You're absolutely right. Think of the Silmarillion less as a novel and more like Tolkien's own mythology textbook, filled with epic poems, historical accounts, and even songs. It's a treasure trove of lore that lays the groundwork for everything we know and love about Middle-earth.
Right, so it's like the prequel to the prequels.
Exactly.
But what kind of intriguing tidbits might even a seasoned Tolkien fan like myself not know about? What sets this book apart from the rest?
For one, the writing style is completely different. Tolkien experiments with various narrative approaches, like the Annals of Aman, which reads like an ancient historical record, or the Quintus Silmarillion, written in a more epic and poetic style. It's a fascinating departure from his more familiar prose.
Okay, so different writing style, different vibe. I like it. Sounds like a richer reading experience. But let's dive into the content itself. We're talking about the first age of Middle-earth, right? What mysteries are hidden in those ancient days?
Let's start with the creation myth, the Ainur Daily. Imagine this. The world is literally sung into existence by these angelic beings called the Ainur, with Eru, the supreme deity, conducting this grand orchestra of creation.
Okay, hold on. Angelic beings, songs of creation. This is a far cry from Bilbo Baggins and his cozy hobbit hole. So how does this musical genesis shape the rest of Tolkien's world?
Well, here's where it gets interesting. Melkor, the most powerful of the Ainur, tries to disrupt Eru's grand design by introducing his own, discordant themes into the music. This struggle between harmony and discord becomes a defining theme throughout Tolkien's entire legendarium.
So the classic battle of good versus evil, but on a cosmic musical scale.
Yeah.
I never realized how deeply Tolkien wove those themes into the very fabric of his universe.
Precisely. And this clash between Eru and Melkor, between order and chaos, sets the stage for everything that unfolds in the First Age. It's the primordial struggle that echoes through generations of elves and men.
Okay, that's pretty epic. But before we get completely lost in the grand cosmic opera of it all, let's talk about those elves and men. How do they factor into all of this?
Well, after the creation of Arda, the world, the Valar, who are like the archangels in this mythology, shape the land and create the first elves. Men come later, but they are gifted with a unique gift by Eru, the ability to shape their own destinies and move beyond the circles of the world.
Interesting. So even from the beginning, we see the seeds of that free will and defiance that characterize so much of Middle-earth's later history. It's fascinating to see those threads connecting. But what about those elves? I know they're a big deal in the Silmarillion, right? Where do they fit into this grand narrative?
They play a central role. Imagine the elves awakening under the light of the two trees of Valinor, these massive, radiant trees that illuminate the world. This is a time of wonder and magic. The elves lived in bliss under the light of the two trees, but their paradise wouldn't last forever. Melkor, ever the troublemaker, had his eyes on their greatest creations, the Silmarils.
Ah, the Silmarils. Those legendary jewels always seem shrouded in mystery, even in The Lord of the Rings. What's their deal? Why were they so coveted even by a godlike being like Melkor?
The Silmarils were like vessels of pure light and beauty, crafted by the elf Ainur. They contain the very essence of the two trees, making them objects of immense power and wonder. Melkor, obsessed with possessing all things beautiful and powerful, desired them above all else.
Okay, so we've got jewels of unimaginable beauty, an envious godlike being. This is sounding less like a history lesson and more like a recipe for disaster.
You're not wrong. Driven by his greed, Melkor actually destroys the two trees of Valinor, plunging the world into darkness and throwing the elves into turmoil.
Talk about an energy crisis.
Yeah.
So what happens next? Do the elves just accept this turn of events?
Not a chance. Fueled by grief and rage, Ainur and his sons swear a terrible oath to pursue Melkor and reclaim the stolen Silmarils no matter the cost. This oath sets in motion centuries of war and bloodshed forever shaping the destiny of the elves.
Wow. I'm already sensing the echoes of those ancient conflicts resonating in The Lord of the Rings. This isn't just some ancient history. It's the foundation for everything that comes after. But let's get back to those Silmarils. What ultimately happened to them?
Their fate is a tale for the ages. One ends up lost in the depths of the earth, another at the bottom of the sea, and the third, well, let's just say it takes a very particular hobbit to finish that story.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. So the Silmarillion is filled with these epic tales. But what about the lesser-known details? What kind of fascinating facts might surprise even those of us who consider ourselves, pretty well-versed in Tolkien?
Well, let's talk about the years of the trees. Remember, this is before the creation of the sun and moon. Time in Valinor was measured by the cycles of light emitted by the two trees. Each cycle lasted about 96 of our years, creating a completely different experience of time.
Years of the trees. That's fascinating. It's like Tolkien created a whole new way of measuring time, reflecting the unique magic of that era. It really highlights how different the world was back then. I always love how Tolkien built such complete and immersive worlds. But this takes it to a whole new level.
Absolutely. It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes about the depth of Tolkien's world building. But speaking of fascinating details, did you know that Gandalf, the wise wizard we all know and love, is actually a latecomer to Middle-earth?
Wait, really? I always assumed Gandalf had been around since the beginning, guiding events from the shadows.
Not quite. During the First Age, he was known as Aloran, and he was a Maya, a lesser Ainu, similar to Melkor, but far less inclined towards evil.
So even Gandalf has his own secret backstory hidden within the Silmarillion. This is blowing my mind. It's like realizing your favorite history professor was hanging out with gladiators in ancient Rome. I'm dying to know more about Aloran in the First Age. What kind of adventures did he have back then?
Well, unlike his later role as a guide and mentor, Aloran was initially hesitant to directly intervene in the affairs of elves and men. He believed in fostering their free will and allowing them to forge their own destinies.
That's fascinating. So even Gandalf's core philosophy was shaped by the events of the First Age. It's like we're getting a glimpse into the creation of the wise wizard we meet in The Lord of the Rings. What an incredible insight. But with it being as powerful as Melkor running amok, surely there were times when even Olorin had to step in, right? There had to be moments when even the most hands-off Ainu had to intervene. Did Olorin ever cross paths with Melkor in those early days?
He did, though often from a distance. Olorin was instrumental in inspiring the elves and men who resisted Melkor's tyranny. He worked subtly, nudging events in the right direction without directly wielding his full power.
So even back then, he was the master strategist, pulling strings from the shadows. I never would have pictured Gandalf as a subtle operator in those early days.
It might seem surprising, but remember, the First Age was a very different time. The Valar, even those like Olorin, were more cautious about interfering directly in the affairs of elves and men. They were still learning about the consequences of their actions.
That's a side of the Valar I never considered before. It makes you realize they weren't just these infallible beings, but rather powerful forces grappling with the complexities of their roles in a world they were still shaping.
Exactly. And that's what makes the Silmarillion so compelling. It peels back the layers of these ancient stories, revealing the complexities and nuances of Tolkien's universe. It's a reminder that even in a world of gods and monsters, choices have consequences. And even the wisest beings are constantly learning.
This has been an incredible journey. I feel like I've just scratched the surface of the Silmarillion, and yet it's already reshaping my understanding of Tolkien's world.
That's the beauty of Tolkien's work. There's always more to discover, more layers to peel back, and more connections to uncover. The Silmarillion, with its ancient tales and hidden details, adds a whole new dimension to Middle-earth, enriching even the most familiar stories.
Well said. So to wrap things up, if there's one thing our listeners should take away from this deep dive, it's this. The Silmarillion isn't just some dry historical text. It's a treasure trove of epic tales, complex characters, and surprising details that will change how you view Tolkien's world forever.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a journey back to the very heart of Middle-earth, a chance to explore its ancient myths and legends and to rediscover the magic that captured our imaginations in the first place.
And on that note, we'll leave you to delve into the pages of the Silmarillion and uncover its secrets for yourselves. Until next time, happy reading. And may your deep dives be filled with wonder and discovery.